So, welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast, David. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, Cleanne, I've been waiting for this and I'm super excited to be with you.
Great. So, tell the listeners a little bit about you and what led you in becoming a minister and traveling the US, delivering sermons to help change the lives of many.
Wow, it's a great question, Cleanne. One thing I will say, I was very blessed. I was raised in a family that was, loved God and talked about God. And so, there's some children that are raised in those kind of families that don't enjoy that environment. I was an altar boy. I was raised in the Roman Catholic Church. I was an altar boy. I loved it, Cleanne. Oh my God, I had so much fun. And, I'm quite a bit older. And back then we had to do the Mass in Latin. So here I am, a little 8-year-old, 9-year-old boy, and I had to know the whole Mass in Latin, right? It was like so amazing. It was so awesome. And that really, I think, started, I'm very fortunate. I had a good foundation, a good home life. But I will say this, even with a good home life, I was a very difficult child. And I had a lot of challenges growing up. I had a very short temper. I could be offended extremely easily. And back in the 50s, they didn't know what to do with a kid like that. They never thought of depression, anxiety, ADD. In the 1950s, when you went into a doctor's office, Cleanne, my doctor, I remember this, he was smoking in the office when I was a little boy. Wow. And that was normal back in the 50s and 60s, and 40s and 30s, doctors smoking in offices, right? It was mind-blowing. But all they could tell my parents is that it must be allergies. He must just have a reaction to allergies. Well, my childhood, I had great parents, but I was not a great child. And I struggled in my childhood, and I began my addictions at the age of 12. And from 12 for the next 30 years, I was very heavily involved in the world of addiction. In my late 20s, I came out of this fog and understood something that a lot of people never understand. And that is, I understood my parents did the absolute best they could do with a child they were not prepared for. My brother and sister followed the rules, right? Like they were in, mom and dad said, do this, brother and sister were right there, and I'm out in left field doing my own thing, right? Didn't go over very well. So, but then in my late 20s, I realized, how brilliant they were. And at 30, I called my mom and dad and I said, I need to tell you something. 90% of what you've been trying to teach me since I was born was correct. And I apologize for not understanding what you were trying to do in the best interest in your heart for me. And Cleanne, that was a major turning point in life. Anytime you can admit that you're wrong in a big place, right? You grow immensely. When you admit you're wrong and you've made a mistake, and people hate admitting they're wrong, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's, whenever I do relationship work, I always know if I'm working with the wife or the husband, whoever I'm starting to work with, it's all the other person's fault. Like no one wants to admit a damn thing these days, right? And so that was the starting point, and then I graduated with my degree in sports psychology and started counseling and doing all this, but there was something that was missing. And in the 1980s up until 1990, I would traveling 40 weeks a year all over the world, speaking on motivation and health and sports psychology and all those kind of things. And then in 1990, I got a calling. And that is to go deeper in my spiritual path, to go deeper in my religious path. And it happened in a strange way. It happened after my failed suicide attempt. People looking at me from the outside thought I had the world by its tail. I was living on the beach, beautiful cars, all that kind of stuff. And I was extremely depressed. We had all of these mental issues that I had as a child that had never been diagnosed. And after the failed suicide attempt, I went through a myriad of mental health testing, and they found what was causing this outrageous pain that I was trying to cover up with addictions and everything else. And I did have uncontrolled clinical depression. I had uncontrolled anxiety, ADD, and ADHD all in this package. Now, some people have said to me, from 1979 to 1990, how did you positively affect so many people when you were struggling so deeply and you even wanted to kill yourself? And Cleanne, the answer is that I was put on this earth to do one thing. It's what I'm doing. That's the only reason I'm here, and I will never let that go. And even in the pain, when the minute I had a session, I felt no depression. I felt no anxiety. I was high. I was high helping people. I was helping them get clean and sober, helping save marriages, helping. And when you're doing that and you get so much gratification, a lot of times we don't pay attention to our own needs.
That can happen. Mm-hmm.
It can happen, and it's called codependency. And I was so concerned about everyone else except for me. And I would go to the lengths of the world to help someone break an addiction, but I wouldn't ask for help. And then after the suicide attempt, I got cleaned up. All the addictions were cleaned up. And then I got this calling, and it was very, very bizarre. It's happened 2 times in my life. Mm-hmm. I was speaking at a group, and a Black woman came up to me afterwards and said, Reverend David, I would like for you to come to our Baptist church and do the sermon this Sunday. And I said, I'm not a reverend. And she said, oh, yes, you are. And I said, no, I'm just a motivational speaker. And she said, Reverend David, no, you're missing it. You're gifted, and you're gifted as a preacher. And she said, I want to invite you to our church. It's an all-Black church, and they're going to love you. They're going to love your passion. They're going to love your energy. You're going to have them standing and clapping and screaming, and they're just going to love you. And I looked at her and I said, ma'am, I don't have any degree. I don't have any. She said, Reverend David. And she kept calling me Reverend David. She's going, Reverend David, you don't need a degree. You were born with it. And that was the first time, Cleanne, that I really started to take the spiritual religious path extremely seriously. And not only did it save my life because it gave me a devotion to God deeper than I'd ever had before, but it gave me an opportunity to work with people that are in so much pain, that are hurting so badly. They need a life preserver. And that life preserver can be God if you so choose it to be. Now you have to work it. You have to do your side of the equation. What we say, and people can have different opinions, and I'm great with anyone's opinion about religion or spirituality, but what we believe is that God says, come halfway, do your human work. Do the human work. I'll take care of the rest. You take care of your addiction. You take care of your anger. You take care of the human stuff. And then let me step in and open doorways that would never open without us being a pair, without you and I working together, without you trusting me and realizing when you go through those troubled waters, I am holding you up. You are never alone. Devote your life to doing good service. Devote your life, and you will always be blessed. Now, I want to make a differentiation here. Being blessed doesn't mean just being wealthy. Being blessed doesn't mean, a perfect marriage. No. Blessings are much bigger and deeper than money and anything else. It's that we believe God resides within and all around us, and so when you're blessed, that means you awaken to the fact that you are so unique and needed and special in this world. Cleanne, too many people don't know how important they are. They don't realize that what they do in this world matters. And because they don't realize that, we go into the world of food addiction, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, social media addiction, television addiction, the desire to be right addiction.
Oh, yeah. That's a new one.
and it's a big one these days, isn't it? Everyone wants to argue about they're right with the pandemic, they're right with politics, they're right with the wars overseas, blah, 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 freaking blah, right? I have 2,600 videos on YouTube, all obviously free. We did one the other day about, I've been doing a lot about suffering, because it's another calling of mine, grief work and suffering. May sound a little strange to some people, but I love it. I the more intense I go deep with my clients, I hold them, embrace them. And I don't just mean physically, I embrace their spirit, their heart, their soul, to let them know they're loved regardless of what they're going through right now. All of this has been a learning experience for me, Cleanne. You know, I'm growing. I'm still learning. One of the, outside of the failed suicide attempt, there's two other things that have happened that dramatically changed my life. And 3 years ago, my mom passed.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
My tears are going to be tears of joy. You know, I've learned so much about grieving in this period of time. You know, I've learned, like, I was book smart grieving until 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with dementia. And it was hell on earth for us, you know, to have a mom that doesn't recognize her husband. They were married for 71 years, Cleanne.
Wow.
And, you know, she would yell at him and scream at him like she's never seen him before. And, you know, that went on for 3 years. In the 3 years of seeing her in that state and that pain was especially hard for me because she never gave up on me as a child. I think most parents would have kicked me out of the house, quite honestly. I think most parents, when I was 14, 15, and 16, wouldn't have kept me. And she did. She would get mad at me. She would punish me. But one of the most beautiful things that she ever did, Cleanne, was she never made me feel unlovable. That's a gift. When you have a mom that loves you so much, who will punish you, but never make you feel guilty or ashamed, that's a gift. So her 3 years of pain and passing was very difficult for me, but I learned more than I could have ever learned in another PhD course about grieving, you know, and I learned something really important. Every tear is a tear of liquid love. From the moment your pet passes, your best friend, your sister, your brother, your mom or dad, that first tear, you can't have tears if you didn't love that person. There would be no tears. There would be nothing. It would be, oh, well, you know, mom passed and, you know, she's in a better place. But if you have tears, that's love. You know, one of my friends, Candace Pert, is a neuroscientist, and she wrote a book in the 90s called Molecules of Emotion. And, you know, one of the things, Cleanne, that you said before the show, you know, and I agree with you 100%. You said you love the show because of all the stories and the different people. You know, I've been doing radio and TV and podcast hosting for almost 40 years. And I have learned so much, just like what you said, you know, from the Candace Perts of the world. And Candace said to me one time when I was interviewing her, she said, David, what do you think tears are made out of? And I said, salt and water. And she said, what else? I said, just salt and water. She said, you know what they're really made out of? Hormones.
Okay.
Tears are packed with hormones. Stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol that need to be released from the body get released via tears. Oxytocin, which is one of the strongest hormones in the body, it's called the bonding hormone. When a woman has a child, her brain is flooded with oxytocin to bond her to the child. When we make love to our partner, if we're in a healthy relationship, it bonds us with the release of oxytocin. You know, so when you have tears of love, well, there's oxytocin in there as well. And Candace Pert blew my mind. My idea of grieving up until my mom and dad got sick, and then my dad died a year ago, it was about sadness and loss. And I'm not saying there isn't sadness and loss, but I am going to tell you this, and I can tell you from experience, the sadness and loss, if you do the work of grieving, is going to turn into this beautiful feeling of connection, because love is eternal.
Oh, yeah.
Love never dies, and we never die. We are always eternal. You know, my mom has visited me 5 times in 3 years, and 3 of the times she's visited me, there was someone in the room while I was talking to her. This is not made up stuff. You know, I didn't wish my mom would appear, you know, like I could see her, the other person couldn't. But she's come 5 times and my dad has come 3 times. Now, I'll tell you something interesting. What I've learned through my own experiences is that I created gateways, and anyone can do this, Cleanne. A gateway is some action that you take to let the loved one know that you would like to still be in touch with them. So for 10 months after my mom died, I wrote her a letter every night. I have like, I don't know, 10 journals of letters every night from the day she died until the 10th month mark. Every time I would write, I would have tears of sadness and tears of joy. I would have tears of pain and tears of love. And on the 10th month mark, I was given a message to build her the biggest garden I could possibly dig and fill it with flowers that she would love. And this is another way we welcome those who have passed over to stay with us. And it was shortly thereafter that, Cleanne, that the first visitation, she came to me. And I started to realize, you know, that love is eternal and we are all eternal. And while some people may not agree with me and some religions may not agree with me, which is totally fine, you know, I've found this to be so powerful. And over the last several years, as I've shared this more and more with clients, I'm having these clients contacting me and going, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe the signs. You know, like I'm working with a woman whose husband died in his sleep. And she found him in the morning. And I mean, that's a horrendous way to find your partner, right? I mean, there's no good way for a partner to die, obviously. But, you know, to roll your partner over in bed and say good morning and have them not be alive is very, very tough. But one of the things that we help our clients with is we say, look for signs. You know, look for signs that would, you know, could only come from your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend or mother or father. And one of the things her husband used to do, so she started writing to him at night, you know, like, hey, honey, I love you and I miss you. And I remember the time we did this. And I remember the time we did that. And when she started writing, she would wake up in the morning, she'd go out into the kitchen and there was a quarter on the kitchen table. And there's no one else that lives in the house but her. And she doesn't like coins. But because she didn't like coins, her husband used to leave coins around to sort of tease her. So all of a sudden she's finding a quarter. And then a couple days later in the bathroom, there's a nickel and 3 pennies that are not there from her. So when you open the gateways, you can start to see the potential of signs that maybe no one else will recognize but you. You know, one of the signs that's universal is the sign of the cardinal, the bird. And prior to my mom, I've fed birds my whole life, Cleanne. My mom taught me that, okay? My mom used to hold a carrot and wild rabbits would come to her hand and eat out of them. That's my mom. She's like a St. Francis in a woman's body, for God's sake, you know? And she taught me to love animals and to love nature and to love plants. And she taught me how to garden. I mean, my mom was just immense for me, you know? And so when she died, I never had cardinals in the backyard until I built the garden. And then all of a sudden, female cardinal started coming to the bird feeder. And then when my dad died, about 3 or 4 months after he died, a male cardinal started coming to the bird feeder. And I'm going, okay, wait a minute. And I Google it and I say, what does a cardinal mean when, you know, someone has passed over? And if you Google it, it'll blow your mind. I mean, there's stories about cardinals and hawks and blue jays and all these animals that could possibly hold messages from the other side. Now, when people say, David, you're crazy, that doesn't make sense at all, I say, that's okay. But let me tell you something. It's made the biggest difference in my life and my client's life when they realize that life is eternal and that while they're not here in the physical body, they are around spiritually. So, you know, Cleanne, my life has done a radical change in the last 3 years. I attribute a lot of the change to my faith. I attribute a lot of it to the amount of work I put into prayer, meditation, journaling, my connection with God and is, you know, as solid as I hope it is. I can make it. My devotion to serving is the utmost. And I said earlier, and I mean this with all my heart, it's the only reason I'm here. It's the only thing I want to do is the work I'm doing. Speaking to you is an absolute gift to me, Cleanne. I want to thank you so much because this is why I'm here. And to connect with like-minded souls, to connect with you who has the same beliefs that I do about helping people. I know it. I can see it in your smile, Cleanne. I can see it in your eyes, Cleanne. You wouldn't be doing this work if this wasn't what you're meant to do, to lift people to a new level of experience.
Yeah, you're right.
And I thank you for having me on with you. And I know I just monopolized your whole show. with one question and David Essel's 45-minute answer.
So David, you're also an author. Where can the listeners get a copy of your books? And you've published like 15 books?
Yeah.
So what are the focus of your books? What do you talk about in those books?
Oh my God.
Oh, not all of them, but just in general. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's all about motivation, right? It's about helping people get to the next level. Let me show. Okay. I don't know if I have a paper copy. This is the newest book that came out this week. Can you read it? I'm not sure if you can.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you want to read it out?
Lessen your burdens and lift your spirits.
Okay.
How to create a mental mastermind program, a spiritual mastermind program to create more inner peace. And so this is one of the directions that I go in. This is purely spiritual. I mean, it's very deep from a spiritual perspective. And then we have another book, Focus, Slay Your Goals, which is all about goal setting. Like how do you set an appropriate goal? Now that book, which we are so blessed by, Focus, Slay Your Goals, was selected by bookauthority.org as one of the top 100 goal-setting books ever written in the history of book writing. And they put us right next to Dale Carnegie, of all people. So, that was beautiful. And then I've done novels. I've written novels, that are part fiction, part nonfiction. And they're about love. Gosh, we cover everything, Glenn, and then I wrote a book for professional athletes because that's the arena I started in. So, and that book was released about 4 or 5 months ago, and now we have another one coming out. So, I believe I'll easily do over 20 books before I decide to leave this plane.
That's a huge accomplishment, a huge goal, David.
Yes, Cleanne.
So where can the listeners get a hold of you, your website, and a copy of your books? And do you have any last words for the listeners, especially those trying to connect with God?
Yeah, I do. So first of all, everything is at talkdavid.com, the name of our website, because Cleanne, that's all I do is talk all day long. So it's an appropriate name. So go to talkdavid.com. Actually, there you can get 4 of our books for free. Oh, okay. 4 books are free at talkdavid.com, 2,600 videos on YouTube. It's all on my website. So go to talkdavid.com. Let's talk about going deeper with God. Take more time, especially in the morning. I believe the most crucial hour in our day is the first hour we awaken. In many different spiritual practices and religions, they teach that first hour is the golden hour, the sacred hour. And they also teach that upon awakening, everyone should instantly smile upon awakening for 2 reasons. 1, you get a chance to make another difference in someone's life today. That's one reason to smile. And the other reason is when you smile, the muscles in your face go to your brain and release dopamine and serotonin, 2 of the most crucial feel-good endorphins the body has, right? So if you want to get closer to God, take the first hour of every day, be electronic free. Grab your Bible, grab your scriptures, grab whatever it is that you connect with. Grab your notebook, journal, meditate, pray, but take that first sacred hour. And I'll tell you something, Cleanne, if people start to follow this one simple rule, now I say it's simple, first hour of every day, it might mean you have to get up an hour earlier. It might mean you have to get up 30 minutes earlier to be away from the chaos that happens in so many households first thing in the morning, right? But it will be worth it. And when you devote that amount of time, very few people do, Cleanne. I mean, we have a lot of people that talk about faith. We have a lot of people that talk about their love of God. But how many people are putting an hour a day into their relationship with God? I'll go back to my mom and dad just really briefly. My dad became an altar boy in the Catholic Church at 72. At 72 years of age, he became an altar boy. From 65 to 75, they went to church 7 days a week. I'm not telling anyone with us right now to do that. I'm just saying this is the pathway of people who have great faith and practice their faith daily. Faith has to be practiced to be deepened. It just doesn't come when you're having struggles and challenges. You know, a lot of people, they forget about God until something goes wrong. And then all of a sudden they're praying. Oh, my Lord, I better pray. I got to pray. Come on, God. What'd you say?
I said they put him in the back, and when something happened, they're like,
yeah,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm asking you is put him first. Put him in the front of the bus. Let him be the driver. But you got to open the door and let him in. And the first thing in the morning, smile, open your arms, welcome God in, say, God, come on, brother, let's go and make a difference today. And if you do that, your days will change.
Wow, David. It was such a pleasure having you. Oh, so much information. Oh,
thank you.
Thank you for being on Beauty of Colors podcast, David.
Cleanne, I had so much fun. You have the most gorgeous smile. You have the most gorgeous energy coming off your face. Oh, I love it, honey.